The middle-class office job used to feel untouchable. Not glamorous. Not always exciting. But safe. You went to college, learned how to write emails, built spreadsheets, sat in meetings, summarized information, answered clients, made reports, and slowly climbed the ladder. For decades, that seemed like the deal. Machines might replace factory workers. Software might replace cashiers. Robots might replace warehouse labor. But the person in the office with a laptop, a degree, and a calendar full of meetings was supposed to be protected. Then AI learned how to read. Then it learned how to write. Then it learned how to code. And suddenly, the safest-looking jobs in the economy started to look a lot more exposed. The important thing is not that AI will replace every office worker overnight. That is the easy version of the story. The real story is quieter. AI is not usually replacing the entire job. It is replacing the repeatable pieces inside the job. The research before the meeting, the first draft of the email, the summary of the document, the customer support reply, the basic marketing copy, the slide outline, the code suggestion, the scheduling message, the report that used to take a junior employee half a day. That is where the shift begins. A job title can survive while the amount of human work inside it quietly shrinks. And that is why this is so hard to see. If a company lays off 10,000 people, everyone notices. If a company simply hires fewer analysts next year, nobody holds a press conference. If a team that used to need 8 people now works with 5 people and a few AI tools, the office still looks normal. The desks are still there. The meetings still happen. The company still says it is investing in the future. But the career ladder underneath the office is changing. The IMF has estimated that around 40% of jobs globally are exposed to AI, with exposure rising to about 60% in advanced economies where cognitive office work is more common. Goldman Sachs has estimated that generative AI could expose the equivalent of 300 million full-time jobs to automation worldwide. But exposure does not mean disappearance. It means the work can be changed. Some workers will be helped. Some tasks will be automated. Some jobs will become more productive. And some openings may simply stop appearing. That last part matters. Because for most middle-class careers, the first job is not supposed to be impressive. It is supposed to be a training ground. You start with the boring work. You collect information. You clean data. You write rough drafts. You sit in on calls. You build simple models. You prepare the memo that someone senior edits. It feels small at the time, but that is how people learn. So what happens when the beginner work becomes the software's job? That is the question companies are only beginning to answer. To understand why this is happening, you have to understand what made the office job feel safe in the first place. Office work was built around information, finding it, organizing it, explaining it, sending it to the right person, turning messy reality into something a manager could read in a 5-page document. For a long time, that was difficult to automate. Older software was useful, but it was rigid. A spreadsheet could calculate numbers, but it could not decide what the numbers meant. A database could store information, but it could not explain the information to a client. A search engine could find pages, but it could not turn 20 pages into a clean executive summary. Generative AI is different because it works in language, and language is the operating system of the office. Emails are language, reports are language, presentations are language, meeting notes are language, customer complaints are language, strategy documents are language, job descriptions are language, performance reviews are language. Once software can handle language, it can enter the workflow of almost every white-collar employee. That does not mean it understands the business the way an experienced person does. It does not mean it has judgment. It does not mean it should be trusted blindly. But it does mean it can produce the first version of a lot of things. And in office work, the first version is often the most time-consuming part. Think about a marketing associate. A manager used to ask for 10 headline options, 3 email drafts, a rough campaign calendar, and a short competitor scan. That could take most of a day. Now, one person can generate a rough version in minutes, then spend their time editing, choosing, checking, and improving. Or think about a customer support team. A human used to read a complaint, find the policy, write a response, and pass the hard cases upward. Now, AI can draft the reply, suggest the policy, summarize the customer history, and leave the human to approve the response. Or think about a junior analyst. Their job used to include digging through reports, summarizing earnings calls, cleaning a spreadsheet, and making the first pass at a chart. AI cannot replace business judgment, but it can eat away at the preparation work that used to justify the role. This is why companies are interested. They are not just chasing a futuristic dream, they are chasing a very old business goal. More output, fewer costs. A smaller team that writes more proposals. A smaller team that answers more tickets. A smaller team that ships more code. A smaller team that produces more research, more content, more analysis, and more internal reporting. Microsoft's work trend research describes the rise of companies built around human teams working with AI agents, where leaders rethink how many humans are needed for each role and task. Anthropic's economic index has also found heavy real-world AI use in computer-related tasks, followed by writing tasks in educational and communication contexts. That tells you where the pressure starts. Not in the corner office, not in the most complex negotiations, not in the judgment calls where one mistake can cost millions. It starts with the work that is repeatable, text-heavy, and easy to review after the fact. That is why the middle-class office job is not being hit like a wall. It is being hollowed out from the inside. The first people to feel this may not be the senior employees. It may be the juniors. That is the strange part. In past waves of automation, the risk often felt higher for workers doing manual, repetitive tasks. This time, some of the most exposed tasks sit inside entry-level office jobs. The tasks that companies gave to beginners because they were useful, simple, and safe. Summarize this. Format that. Draft this. Research those competitors. Clean this file. Turn these notes into a memo. Write the first response. Prepare the meeting brief. None of this was glamorous, but it was the apprenticeship. A junior employee did not become valuable because they were born with judgment. They became valuable by doing hundreds of small tasks close to the work. They saw what their manager changed. They learned which details mattered. They learned how clients reacted. They learned what a good answer looked like. They learned what could go wrong. AI threatens that path in a very specific way. If the software handles the beginner work, companies may decide they need fewer beginners. Stanford Digital Economy Lab researchers have found substantial employment declines for early career workers in some AI-exposed occupations, including software development and customer support, while more experienced workers in the same occupations have been more stable. That does not prove every junior office job is disappearing, but it points to a pattern that many young workers already feel. The job market does not have to collapse for the entry point to get narrower. A company can keep its experienced employees. It can give them AI tools. It can ask them to produce more. And then, instead of hiring 5 graduates, it hires 2. Nobody calls that a mass layoff. But for the people trying to enter the middle class, it can feel like the door got smaller. This is the hidden risk of AI in office work. It is not just about today's jobs. It is about tomorrow's workers. Because an economy still needs experienced analysts, managers, engineers, marketers, accountants, consultants, designers, and operators. But if fewer people get to do the beginner work, where does the next generation of experienced workers come from? That is the career ladder problem. For years, companies treated junior employees as expensive but necessary. They made mistakes, they needed training, they slowed down senior people. But over time, they became the future of the company. AI gives companies a tempting shortcut. Skip the messy training stage, give the senior people tools, make the team smaller, keep output high. In the short term, that looks efficient. In the long term, it may weaken the pipeline that created skilled office workers in the first place. The office job was never just a paycheck. It was a machine for turning beginners into professionals. AI may be breaking that machine before anyone has built a replacement. But this story is not only about loss, because AI does not affect every worker in the same way. The same tool that makes one worker easier to replace can make another worker far more valuable. The difference is not whether someone has AI on their laptop. Everyone will have that. The difference is whether they know how to turn it into leverage. A weak worker uses AI to produce more average work. A strong worker uses AI to move faster through the average work and spend more time on judgment. They ask better questions. They know what to check. They understand the customer. They can tell when the answer sounds right but is wrong. They can connect the AI output to the real business problem. They can turn a rough draft into a decision. That is where human value moves. Away from typing, away from formatting, away from gathering obvious information, toward taste, judgment, trust, context, accountability, and execution. The future office worker may look less like a person who personally does every task and more like a person who directs a small cloud of software helpers. One agent searches, one drafts, one summarizes, one checks the spreadsheet, one prepares the client brief, one monitors tickets, one compares options, and the human decides what matters. That sounds powerful. It is also uncomfortable, because it means the old signals of competence may become weaker. Being able to write a clean email is still useful, but it is no longer rare. Being able to summarize a document is still useful, but it is no longer enough. Being able to build a basic report is still useful, but it may not justify a full-time role by itself. The premium moves to people who can decide what should be done, not just produce the artifact. That creates a divide inside the office. Workers who only complete assigned tasks may feel pressure. Workers who can define the task, improve the workflow, manage the AI, and take responsibility for the outcome may gain power. In a strange way, AI makes human judgment more important by making basic production cheaper. When everyone can create a draft, the question becomes, who knows which draft is good? When everyone can generate analysis, the question becomes, who knows what the analysis is missing? When everyone can produce more, the question becomes, who knows what should not be produced at all? That is the new office skill, not doing more work for the sake of it, directing work towards something that matters. Companies will still need people. They will need people to manage relationships. They will need people to make judgment calls. They will need people to understand messy human problems that do not fit neatly into a prompt. But they may need fewer people whose main value is moving information from one format to another. That is the uncomfortable truth. AI is not coming for office jobs in one dramatic wave. It is coming through the inbox, through the spreadsheet, through the support ticket, through the report draft, through the coding assistant, through the meeting summary, through the small tasks that used to fill the day. And by the time the job market fully notices, the work may already be different. The middle-class office job is not dead, but the old version of it is becoming harder to defend. AI is not just coming for office jobs. It is coming for the old version of office work. The safest worker may not be the one who avoids AI. The safest worker may be the one who knows how to turn AI into leverage.